Hey, what's up, everybody? Gabe here, and I'm back from my vacation. I've been back for about a week. I know I haven't uploaded the vacation video yet, but I'm still working on that. I've gotten all the footage and started looking through all of it to decide what I'm going to do with what. It rained a lot in the second half of my trip, so I have a lot more footage from the first 2 days than the last two, so it's kind of hard to make a coherent story. I don't know. I'm still working on it. Let's leave it at that for now. So in the meantime, I thought I'd make a quick vlog. It's a nice day out today, something like 26 or 27 degrees Celsius, which is pretty good for late September. I'm only wearing my jacket with a t-shirt, no underlayers or anything, which is a nice change. And really, I could have worn a lighter jacket than this. I just grabbed it because I had all the stuff in the pockets already. So yeah, nice day, although those clouds are a little menacing, but not overwhelming the sky, so I think it's going to be good. I think it's going to be all right. So I thought I'd make a quick vlog to talk about the how the XSR 900 did as a touring bike. So I rode about 2,100 something kilometers in 4 days. So I rode, more on average more than 500 kilometers per day. And I did it all on this bike, of course. No break days where I didn't ride at all or barely. So like every single day of the trip, I rode a lot. So I never really had a chance to recover. I rode with luggage. I think my last video, I kind of showed all the stuff that I brought. And yeah, that was the stuff I brought basically, plus what I'm wearing now, more or less, some underlayers. And, it went pretty well. So I thought I'd talk about, how this bike did and does for that. And if you're maybe one of those people who really likes this bike, but also wants to do some touring once in a while, maybe like, some tips or some advice. So off the bat, I will say this isn't really a touring bike. I think that's pretty obvious, but and if you watch other reviews, I remember the RevZilla review of this bike in 2016 said there's two groups of people that it wouldn't serve. They felt this was quite a poor bike for a new rider because of how powerful it is, and they felt it was a poor bike for touring. And they didn't really go deep into the reasons, but it's not hard to figure it out. The first one, and all of these things were true. The first one is the limited fuel range. Right now I've got 191 kilometers on my tank of gas here, and this blog is almost certainly going to be interrupted by a fuel up, because I don't really see how else I could do it. I'm going to run out. I'm going to at least hit the reserve, maybe not run out. So that's one thing. I will say, 200 kilometers, I brought 2 extra liters of fuel, of course, on the trip, and I didn't use it. I never took them out of their holsters. I dumped them into the bike when I got back home, as predicted. I kind of knew that would be the case. They were insurance. I think doing it again, I would take one of them with me, only 1 liter, and bring something else in the other holster, like water probably, so that I'd have a convenient water bottle holder, because I didn't really have a good way to bring a water bottle with me in the rest of the luggage, whereas it would have fit in one of those holsters just fine. So yeah, fuel range is a thing, but at least where I was, and I think in a lot of places, 200 kilometers between fuel stops, you're going to find a fuel stop. So it does mean you have to stop more often, but at least you're going to make it. Now, there's probably trips out there where that won't be the case, where you're riding across some pretty desolate landscape. And I'm not talking about necessarily ADV trips of those two, but this is obviously not an ADV bike. No, I'm thinking more some long stretches across the prairies or something, maybe off the main highway, where you might have to plan your fuel stops a little more, and more range would be nice, or bring in the insurance gas would be nice. But for the Guest BZ, there was gas stations everywhere. I really didn't have any incidents with that. So yeah, fuel range is one of the reasons though why this bike isn't an optimal touring bike. Fair enough. Especially coming off that KTM 790, which had a 450 kilometer fuel range, which is more than double. So definitely notice the difference. Next would be weather protection. Well, there's none. I mean, you can see the cockpit of this bike. No handguards, no windscreen, no fairing, just get wet, get windy, get cold, get hot, whatever, get the bugs. That's just how it is. That's fine. You could add some of that stuff. You could add a little touring windshield or a giant touring windshield if that's what you like. You could add hand guards. I don't know about a fairing, although probably somebody out there has fabricated one. But I would say that most of those people fabricating those things are doing it for aesthetic reasons. But anyway, you could add all of that stuff, but I didn't add any of it, and I don't think I'm going to. Because most of the time, I'm not going to be touring on this bike, and the wind blast or whatever for normal riding, for riding to work like I've been doing, for just kind of cruising around town, it's just not annoying enough. Like, it doesn't matter. Even for like a full day ride, like whatever, one day is fine. If I was touring for 3 months straight, I would get a different bike. Like, I wouldn't do a 3-month long tour on this personally. But for the kind of touring I just did, 4 days, I don't need the protection. It's fine. And I got rained on a lot. I say that after having got rained on a lot. Because the thing is, again, I had that KTM that had pretty much all the touring comfort you could expect from a bike. And at the end of the day, when it rains, you still get wet. You know, the windscreen is there, the fairing is there, the handguards are there, you still get wet. So for me, that aspect of it just wasn't so bad. It was manageable, personally. Ergonomics, they're really good. At my height, at my size, so again, I'm like somewhere between 5'8" and 5'9", about 30, 31 inch inseam. I'm not sure the exact measurements, something like that. And I don't have any hunched up knee problems. I'm not overstretching or anything to reach the bars. Everything is quite comfortable. It's really easy to sit on this thing for me. The only thing that starts to kind of go after a while is my butt on the seat, but I've never had a bike that after 6 hours I wasn't tired of sitting in. And it's not just bikes. Now that I think about it, I've never had a car that I like sitting in for 6 hours at a time, or an office chair that I like sitting in for 6 hours at a time. You just got to get up and stretch. That's just how it is. Oh, a little off-road section here? No, it's paved. Okay. It's not an off-road section. Speaking of, I did plenty of these where they were more like off-road sections, where there were several kilometers of gravel and on top of cut-up asphalt like this. And it's annoying when people do what this guy's doing, which is like slow to a stop, because I need to carry enough momentum to stay balanced through the gravel. And then these guys go like just too slow. These ones aren't so bad, but some of the cars I encountered were just like too slow, and it was really annoying. And this stuff is fine, even on these like sporty tires on this bike. It's fine. Maybe because I've ridden a lot of gravel on my other bikes, so gravel just doesn't freak me out. But it's totally fine. It feels really well balanced. It's not a problem. You don't feel like you're going all over the place. Even when it was wet and kind of muddy under the gravel, I didn't have a problem. It was fine. So I did do lots of this. I would not want to do 500 kilometers of gravel highway on this bike, because there's no protection. So once you pick up the speed, so I was just going through very slowly there, 10-15 kilometers an hour or so, but you pick up the speed, it's going to start kicking rocks everywhere, all the dangly bits on the fairly low engine and stuff. I wouldn't want to risk the damage personally. And adding a whole bunch of skid plate and all that crap to this thing, yeah, you could do it, but then again, it's like, it's the wrong tool for the job, right? Like, to me, this is like basically a sport bike, or like a street bike, you know, a sporty street bike. It's really not like a bike I'd want to do extensive off-road riding on, or like gravel riding, not trails like off-road, but like gravel riding. This is like the gravel stuff. That's the kind of stuff that KTM really excelled at. But this bike can handle it if you need to go on some, especially for those construction sections. But then again, I remember doing those kind of sections on the CBR 600RR with even more ridiculous tires and the hunched over position, and it was fine too. I got used to doing it pretty fast. It was pretty easy. So, like anything, practice makes perfect, and you just gotta take your time and get through it. So, okay, moving on. I was talking about comfort. I was saying that my butt didn't like the seat after 6 hours, and that's true. I mean, after I was like getting up and standing on the pegs a lot and trying to stretch because I was getting sore. But I don't think that's particular to this bike. I don't think that there's much you could do. You could put a different seat, and I'm pretty sure I would get sore in a slightly different way after probably about the same amount of time. My body's tolerance for sitting in a position is about 6 hours, and then I'm tired of it. So I'm certainly not planning on changing any seats or doing anything like that, because I really think that it's not worth the benefit. Yeah, I wouldn't get anything out of it, not really. And especially because most of the aftermarket seats that I've seen either are something I really don't like from an aesthetic point of view, or they're really expensive. So for that, it just doesn't seem worth it. So that's about it for the negatives. And even then, that ergonomic stuff wasn't really negative. I thought the riding position was a good one to ride all day on. Again, no knee pain, no wrist pain, no elbow. I don't know why you'd have elbow pain. I just threw that out there because I said knees and wrists. No body pain, except for, you know, my butt being tired of the seat again, which I mentioned, and which I don't think is unique. That happened on the KTM, happened on the 600RR, it happened on the DRZ, happened on the R3. It happened on every bike I've had, because sitting on a seat for that long sucks. Happens in my Honda Civic. Here's a gas station I guess we'll go to. Yeah, there should be an entrance right over the hill. So we're going to take a little break, because I'm going to fill my bike up with gas, and that's really boring footage. So when I come back, I'll talk about what was good about this bike for touring, rather than the negatives like fuel range or whatever. And that'll be that. So see you soon. All right, and we're back, and there's no traffic right now. Perfect. So the good parts about this bike for touring. All right, the first one is that, well, I mentioned the ergonomics. I think they bear repeating. The riding position is nice and neutral and easy, and it's pretty good for like a long ride. I think that if it was any more upright, it would be a little bit negative, because of the wind blast would be more tiring. I think there's just enough of a bit of a forward lean, a reach forward, that keeps you a bit when you're going for a while at a higher speed and the wind is pushing on your chest and your helmet is like kind of holding you up a little bit. It's not like a full tuck like a super sport bike, obviously. It's still a very upright riding position, but it's not as bolt upright as the KTM or especially the DRZ were. And I think I prefer having just a little bit of forward lean for that wind effect to help you out. Whereas on those overly upright bikes, you feel like you have to kind of counteract the wind yourself, and it just seems more tiring than with this, where it sort of naturally solves itself. Or anyway, it feels like it does. Probably matters a lot which way the wind is coming in too, I think. So that's one. So that's a good part. I thought the riding position was really good. The second thing is kind of a weird one, but so I mean, I mentioned every video I made about this bike how much I've enjoyed the engine so far, and that's of course still true. I definitely still enjoy the engine when I ride the bike. But one thing that really surprised me was just how ready this engine is to kind of switch behavior and adapt to what you need it to do in a moment. Now I know like every engine is willing to go high or low RPM whenever you tell it to. It's a machine. It doesn't have feelings. I get that. But I mean, what the sensation is to the rider. So let's talk about the big KTM. That 790 Adventure was really nice when you were cruising down the highway for a long time on it. You know, all that mass made it more stable, and its engine was well geared for that sort of thing. It was quite comfortable to do that with. Then you'd reach a situation like this where you're going like, you know, super slowly, and you're balancing, and you're kind of like taking off after a light, and you're following this like slow Mazda, and you know, that's how it is. This is what riding in town is like, right? It's not like especially good or bad. It's just what it is. I find when you come off a high speed ride and you like reach this town, maybe you stop to get lunch or gas or whatever, and it's just like, oh, this is so frustrating, and like the engine just feels like it wants to like get right back up to that like high speed. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but when I'm riding on this, what I found instead was that I would slow down to the town. I'd downshift a couple times to get into the town, and all of a sudden the bike would feel like super good again. Like, okay, we're going slow now, and it would still be responsive. It wouldn't feel like, oh, I don't know. I don't think that's just the engine either. I don't know how to describe what I'm trying to say, which is unfortunate. But what I think what I'm trying to say is that even coming off of a lot of speed and like a relatively high RPM, you'd slow down on this bike and it would still feel just fine. It would still feel perfectly like capable and natural, and it wouldn't feel like you're asking the machine to do something that it's less good at than what you were just doing as a high-speed riding. Whereas with a bike like the KTM or the CBR 600RR, when you'd ride those at high speed and then you'd slow them down, they wouldn't feel so good at low speed. For different reasons. The CBR 600RR just didn't feel great at low RPM because its engine was tuned to do high RPM, and so as soon as you drop the RPM, you'd really notice, the difference. And the KTM was the weight of the bike, as well as the engine also felt better at higher RPM, but not as bad as the CBR. But I think it was mostly like just the weight and balance of the bike was better at higher speed relative to lower. I'm actually not going to straight. So I'm pretty sure that's what that was all about. I don't have proof or anything. It's just what it feels like to me. KLR 650. But yeah, that was my feeling. So I always liked I was riding, and then it was like in the wind and high speed, and it was cool. And then like, oh, okay, we're gonna slow down in town, and it wasn't like, oh, I can't wait to get back on that open road again. No, it was nice. It was like, okay, we're going high speed, we're going low speed, it's all good. Yeah. So, what else? What else could we talk about? That was good. I mentioned in my video after a week of owning this bike or whatever, that I thought the suspension, the rear shock was too harsh, and it was like jostling me a bit when I ride. What's interesting is that I didn't touch the preload when I put the luggage on the bike. Now, I didn't have too much weight. I had some, right? 2 liters of gas and a bunch of stuff, camping stuff, and I didn't touch any suspension settings. I put that stuff on, and immediately I liked it better. It was better with that weight over the rear, which says to me that I need to take a click out of the preload for sure, and I bet it will be better just by doing that, because that added weight effectively kind of did that for me, right? So it's clearly set up for that much weight, not just me, and it felt better. So I'm going to try that. I just haven't gotten around to it yet, and see how it goes. But my thinking is, yeah, that was something I noticed. So with that said, the suspension did an admirable job, even over some pretty crappy road. I didn't have any complaints. It seemed like it was set up just fine, and I liked it. Otherwise, it's small stuff that doesn't really have anything to do with this specific bike, but my USB charger failed here. I'm pretty sure there's a switch on the actual charger, and I was using it because I noticed that the bike didn't like starting when the switch was on, and I assume because there's a little bit of extra draw in the battery, and the battery is kind of small, so the starter didn't like turning. So I would click it off and start the bike, and then click it back on again. And I guess it's such a cheap little USB charger that just using that switch a few times was enough to destroy it. And now it doesn't start anymore. Like the bike starts, the switch doesn't do anything, and the USB thing doesn't charge anymore. So that sucks. It sucks. There's not much I can really do about it. Oh, I wanted to go here. Oh well, too bad. We'll go straight. So in light of that, I would say the KTM having built in like part of the bike USB charging, or like a power outlet or whatever, that I had an adapter for USB, was a nice feature that I guess I wouldn't hate having, because having added my own now, it's only gone so well. And yeah, definitely better when it's integrated. But hey, I'm pretty sure if I didn't buy like a cheap one like this, it would be fine. So I'm going to try to either fix this or get another one and see how it goes. Yeah, that's too bad. What else? Quickly. Okay. There's an induction howl at just the wrong RPM in 6th gear that meant that a lot of the trip I was in 5th gear. It didn't noticeably seem to affect my fuel consumption, but I found that if I was like 500 RPM lower in 6th gear at the same speed, the high-pitched induction howl would get on my nerves pretty fast. Whereas if I drop it like to 5th and go up 500 RPM for that speed, the problem would be gone and it wouldn't bother me anymore. So I definitely, that was noticeable enough to like do something about it, to shift down, right? It's an amusing throwback to when I had a Subaru WRX with a 5-speed manual. I had the pre-2015 one, and at 110 kilometers an hour in 5th gear, I could hear the turbo whining, and it was really loud and really obnoxious. And I took that car on a couple of road trips to Nova Scotia and stuff, so it was, you know, not my favorite to drive. And you couldn't put that in 4th gear. You would guzzle so much gas. It was a pretty wide ratio box. The difference between 4th and 5th was quite a lot. 5th was the overdrive gear, you know, so it was pretty bad. You wouldn't want to cruise down the highway in 4th, so you just have to kind of put up with this really high-pitched whine. I would say this one isn't as bad as that was, but it's still definitely noticeable. So yeah. Anything else? I think that is everything. I think that as a whole, I had a really good time on the bike. I really enjoyed riding it, especially on secondary roads where I hit twisty sections. I did all kinds of riding, city riding or town riding, secondary roads like this, bigger kind of secondary, like what we call the old highways. So numbered roads that were the highways before the kind of modern freeway system. I did use the modern freeway system on my way home, so I did it all. And it handled it all with competence. You know, it wasn't perfect at every scenario, but it did just fine, and I've got no complaints. I certainly, accepting this USB problem, I certainly think that the stuff I added is fine, and I would not need to add any more stuff for long distance riding if I was going to do another long distance ride on this bike. So if next year I do it or whatever, then, you know, I won't be adding any more kind of long distance oriented mods for it. I don't see the need. I don't want to add any kind of wind protection stuff. I find that the aesthetics of this bike are a real important reason to get it, and I personally find every windscreen I've ever seen outright ruins the aesthetics. Now, I understand that's super, super subjective, and plenty of people really like the look of different windscreens on this bike, and that's fine. That's totally fine. But for me personally, I prefer it with its like traditional naked look, and I wouldn't do that. So I am going to keep it as is. I think it was great. I wouldn't change anything anyway. It was fine. If you're looking to buy a bike to do nothing but touring, don't buy this. Buy the Tracer 900 instead. That's got the same engine but like touring oriented stuff. Or buy that bike I used to have, the KTM 790 Adventure. If you're going to do a lot of long touring, that's a really good bike. Can hold a lot more luggage, can, you know, go 450 kilometers on the tank. It's got wind and weather protection. It's got built-in USB charger. It's designed for touring. It's made for it. It costs more though. That's the downside. But, you know, it's absolutely designed for touring. So yeah, that's definitely what I would do if all I wanted to do is do touring, or if I wanted to go 3 months on a trip or something. But for what I've been doing, I think this little bike was excellent. I had a good time, and yeah, I would do it again. So that's it. Sorry this kind of was rambly. This was pretty off the cuff. I didn't really plan what I was going to say, but hey, I thought I'd make an update since I haven't posted for a while. So yeah, have a good night, and I'll see you soon. Peace.